And so I'd actually like to start today actually by doing a prayer, an affirmative prayer for the hurricane and everything that's going on around that. So I actually invite you right now just to join me in knowing the truth. And so what I recognize and I know is regardless of what things look like, regardless of what wind is blowing and rain is coming and water is falling, regardless of any of that, what I recognize and know is that there is an infinite power and an infinite presence, a presence of good and an infinite intelligence and wisdom that is guiding right now and directing every single person that is in the path of this storm right now. That presence is a presence beyond our knowing. That it is the knowingness itself of the entire universe, that it is infinite in its knowingness. And right now it is leading and guiding and opening the way for every single person that is there, leading them into a place of safety and leading them into a place of comfort. And that presence of love and that presence of peace is wrapping itself around every single individual right now. And that feels like protection. And that feels like safety. And that feels like a sense of well-being. And so I know that well-being is the truth that is unfolding itself. That each person is led and guided and makes their way to higher ground and to a place of safety and of comfort and of well-being. That this presence and power is bigger than any storm, bigger than any hurricane, and that it, right now, is unfolding itself as peace and as safety and as security and as well-being, as coming together and holding hands and helping each other and lifting each other up and making good real here. And so it is with that I simply give thanks and I release this prayer in absolute confidence and faith, knowing that this is the truth. And I say, and so it is. So why do we pray? Why do we do affirmative prayer? Why do we even bother knowing the truth when something's going on? Because in our affirmative prayer and in our knowing the truth, something happens. Something shifts. Something changes in this material world. One of the very core concepts of this philosophy says that in the infinite nature of God, all conceivable good is eternally available, ready to flow into human experience. Through some cosmic process, this flow of good is activated and or increased by human belief, faith, and acceptance. In our affirmative prayer, what happens is we take our focus off of the problem. We take our focus off of what is not working, and instead we put our attention on the truth with a capital T. We put our attention on that infinite power and that infinite potential and that infinite good. And when we do that, what happens is we have opened our consciousness up so that that good can flow into our lives and in us and through us. And then, because there is only one, and we are all part of this oneness of life, this oneness of God, because we have created an opening within ourselves to allow that to flow, an opening has been created everywhere. And even more pointedly, wherever anyone is open or willing or receptive or accepting of that, that can manifest in their lives then. We have created an opening, and it's easier to manifest in this world because we have created an opening in consciousness. But what happens more often is when there is a major catastrophe, like a hurricane that is happening, or like fires that have been burning this summer, or even when something unwanted shows up in our lives, like you get laid off from a job that you really like, or a relationship ends that you're in that you didn't really want to end, or you crash your car, or you come down with an illness, what happens is it's so easy to get into fear. It's so easy to get into fear thinking that things will not be okay, that we will not be okay. Fear of thinking it's all over now, everything's just fallen apart, to think that things will never be good again. Have you ever done that? Things will never be good again because this thing is happening in my life. But you know what the truth is? The truth is it doesn't matter what's happening in the world. The truth is it doesn't matter what distressing thing is occurring in your life. God is bigger than the problem. God is bigger than what is going on. God is bigger than an illness. God is bigger than that relationship ending and bigger than the loss you are experiencing. God is bigger than your car crash. God is bigger than any job or loss of a job. God is bigger than the force of a hurricane. God is bigger than this. And that's the title of my talk today, God is bigger. And what I'm talking about is the fact that it doesn't matter what's happening in our lives or what's happening in the world, we are never stuck. And it is never a done deal. It is never a dead end, and we are never at a dead end. You know why? Because the universe is always unfolding itself. Because that infinite potential, the wholeness of the universe, is seeking expression in us and through us and in our lives and through our lives. It is seeking to express in a greater way as wholeness and as peace and as well-being. That boundlessness of the universe is seeking to express through us in the midst of whatever is going on. That's the nature of life. To always seek expression, to always unfold in ever greater and greater ways. That's the nature of life. That's the nature of God. That's the nature of the universe. That's what Ernest Holmes means when he says the lesser is always contained within the greater. Whatever is going on right here, there is something bigger and something more powerful and more real and a greater good than this thing that's happening right here. So I read a story this week that I'd like to share with you, and it goes like this. You can't deny the fact that sometimes it feels like things aren't working out the way you want it. The whole universe is against you. That your life is a complete mess, and your only wish is to experience more success. Walt Disney felt the same. Life wasn't easy for him. As a matter of fact, Walt Disney experienced so many failures, but that did not tempt him to give up. You think that Walt Disney has a wild imagination? Well, he was fired as a newspaper editor before, and according to his boss, he lacked imagination and had no good ideas. Also, he tried to start a business, but faced bankruptcy before it even gained success. He was literally and figuratively broke. All he had was his dreams and aspirations. He never got tired, though, and continued to try new ideas until he reached success. And once he did, it was overwhelming. He managed to win 22 Academy Awards and established the first Disneyland in California in 1955. Today, as we all know, Walt Disney Company rakes in billions of dollars annually from movies, theme parks, and merchandise around the world. We are never at a dead end. It is never the end of the story. We are never at a place that is hopeless because we live in that infinite potential, and it lives in us and seeks to express through us. Our consciousness, our attitudes, and our beliefs, and our perspective, and our focus either allows that creativity and that good and that wholeness through, or it blocks it. Our fear and our doubt and our unbelief and our looking backwards at what has been blocks that flow of good. We block it when we do those things. It blocks the creative power of the universe when we are in fear and doubt and worry. I think you all know, most of you all know, that we were on vacation last week, and we went to Canada, to Banff and Jasper and Lake Louise, and it was so incredibly beautiful, one of the most beautiful places I've ever been in my entire life. There, the streams and the lakes are aqua color, bright, glistening aqua, because they are made of glacial water. It's so beautiful. Huge granite mountains that some are jagged and pointed and some are more round. It's like Yosemite on steroids. Everywhere you look for miles and miles, hundreds of miles, is like being in Yosemite. It was so fantastic. Waterfalls everywhere. And we went on hikes and saw lakes and streams and waterfalls. It was so fabulous. But you know what? I could only experience that magnificence if my eyes are open. I could only experience that magnificence if I was looking toward it, if I was looking for it. I could have closed my eyes and not looked. I could have denied that that stuff was real, or I could have just not looked. Or I could have just looked at the dirt that I was standing on. Or I could have looked and kept my attention on the road that got me to where I was, what was behind me. Or I could open myself and be present to something bigger. I could open myself and be present and open to the grandeur and to the magnificence and to that which was beyond my wildest imagination. Believing that we are stuck when something's happening in our lives is like closing our eyes to that magnificence. It's like not looking. It's like looking at the dirt that we're standing on instead of the magnificence that is before us. It's like staying in the dark instead of turning on the light. But when we do affirmative prayer or spiritual mind treatment or remember and tell ourselves the truth and affirm the truth that magnificence is already present and seeking to unfold itself through this thing, that's turning on the light. I know that when things happen in our lives, all of us, we really, when life takes an abrupt turn, when it makes a U-turn, or when we feel like we've had the rug pulled out from underneath our feet, or something unwanted shows up in our life, what we really want is to know that we're not stuck. We really want to know that this isn't the end of the story. We really want to know instead that good is available to us. And the good that we seek, that we long for in our lives, is available to us. We want to know that we are safe. We want to know that we are okay. We want to know that things are okay. We want to know that limitless possibilities are available and are ours as we move through that thing. And you know what? They are. Limitless possibilities are ours. And you know what else? You are safe. And you are okay. And you will be okay. And things will be okay, because that's the way it works. But you know what? It takes knowing it first. Like that prayer at the beginning, it takes knowing it so that we can open ourselves to it, so that we become available to it. It takes opening to it and believing it. It takes what Ernest Holmes calls creating a mental equivalent of it. That means to see in your mind's eye what it is that you want and to know that it is yours. To see it and feel it and experience it and be open to it. Because our consciousness is the creative factor in our lives. Our consciousness is the thing that allows the good to come into our lives or blocks it. So we recognize and we hold in mind our desired outcome, that mental equivalent of what we want, instead of focusing on what is happening that we don't want. We shift our focus. Ernest Holmes, in The Essential Earnest, talks about this. And I love this book, The Essential Earnest, by the way. He says, we cannot demonstrate beyond our ability to mentally embody an idea. The argument is between our experience, what the world believes, and what we are convinced is the truth. It's not what we see, it's what we are convinced is the truth inside of ourselves. The possibility of demonstrating does not depend upon environment, condition, location, personality, or opportunity. It depends solely upon our belief and our acceptance. Everyone who asks receives according to his or her belief. It happens according to our belief. That's where it starts. That's what it means, what Ernest Holmes means when he says God can only do for us what God can do through us. We have to know and believe and accept and be open to in order for it to come into our lives. And so then I say that it behooves us to recognize and know that there is an infinite intelligence that is at the center of your life, always. That there is an infinite intelligence at the center of whatever situation or circumstance you are experiencing that you are not wanting to have in your life. God is at the center of that also. To know that you can never be separate or apart from that creative force of the universe, ever, because it lives in you. It's the very fabric of your life. To know that God is bigger than this, whatever your this is. And to know that spirit, wholeness itself, is seeking to express through you and through your life and through your experience in ever greater and greater ways. Wholeness longs to experience through you, to experience itself through you in larger and larger ways, expressing ever more fully. And so I invite you for a moment to think of some issue you're having in your life. Is there some place you've been feeling stuck? And so I invite you to think of that and then to say with me, God is bigger than this. God is bigger than this. And let's say it again. God is bigger than this. Do you feel something happen in you? Do you feel a little bit of a sense of relief? Or a little bit of sense of letting go? Or a little bit of a sigh? God is bigger than this. And you know the reason you feel something is in here is because there's something in you that already knows that that is the truth. And you saying it stirs it and wakes it up and allows you to experience it again. That is God within you. That is the God of your very being waking up. That is your spirit. That is spirit itself. Ernest Holmes says in his book, Living Without Fear, in reality, each person's spirit is their share of the universal presence in which we all live and move and have our being. Hence, the spirit of the individual is the Spirit of God in the individual. The two are really one. And it is this inner spirit which wishes to become more fully expressed through us. It is the presence of God of your own being that is seeking to express in a fuller way. But it takes our openness. It takes our willingness. It takes us taking our focus off of the problem. The good, that means that the good that you desire is seeking to express through you and through your life. And that thing that stirs inside of there when you say God is bigger than this, that inside of you, that is the thing within you that calls you to be on this spiritual path. That is the thing that calls you to remember the truth. That is the thing that calls you to be here on Sunday morning. That is the thing that calls you to do spiritual practice. It's your own divine essence longing to remember. And as we remember, we open ourselves up to the greater. It calls us to know. It calls us to make space for. It calls us to allow it to come into our lives. And we allow it through our conscious knowing. We allow it through our affirmative beliefs. We allow it through doing spiritual mind treatment or affirmative prayer. We block it through our fear and our doubt and our worry and our focusing on what isn't working. We block it by thinking that whatever is happening in our lives is the final script, is the final draft of the story, that it's written in stone. But to think whatever's going on in your life that is unwanted is written in stone is like when you drive on that desert road and you see the water on the road that's a mirage. It's like believing that's real. Your senses tell you it's real. It certainly looks like it's real. But that's what we do when we hold that thing that isn't working is real and it's solid and it's there forever. It's like believing in that mirage. And so our call, I believe, then is to look deeper than what our five senses tell us is the truth. Our call is to take our attention beyond the material world, to look beyond the material world, and instead to set our gaze upon spirit, to set our gaze upon that infinite creative principle and power that is the nature of life, to set our gaze on that presence and principle of creativity that is life unfolding itself through your own life, to put our attention on beauty and on peace and on love and on the good. Our call is to recognize that good, that infinite intelligence, that love is present right here, right now, in every single right here and right now. Our call is to know the truth, that divine presence lives within us and is longing for nothing more than to have its way through us as magnificence and as good. To know that magnificence is seeking expression through your consciousness and through my consciousness and through your life and through my life. It only takes openness. It takes belief and positive expectation and anticipation of that good showing up. And so my invitation to you is to know the truth. My invitation to you is to do affirmative prayer, spiritual mind treatment, to pray. And if you can't get to that truth on your own, to read something that inspires you. Read Ernest Holmes, or read Raymond Charles Barker, or read Joel Goldsmith, or Eric Butterworth, whoever it is that you can read and that stirs that inside of you, that gives you that sense of relief. Like I said, it's because you already know it. It's like waking it up. Oh, yes, I forgot. We don't know it in our heads. We know it in here. But sometimes it has to be stirred awake. My invitation is to, if you get stuck, sit down and pray with a practitioner. Let them pray for you. It's easy. They're not emotionally involved in your story. It's really easy for them. And as a result, you'll be moving through those hiccups and those U-turns and those detours in your life with greater ease and with greater confidence and with greater peace. And so I invite our practitioners to stand right now, and what we're going to do is a chamber of prayer in this room. And so what I'd like you to do is to bring to mind that thing in your life where you have felt stuck. And to bring to mind what you want to experience instead of that. What is it that you want to experience? And what is it that you want to feel? And so I invite you to just hold that in your mind and to hold the possibility of that unfolding itself and to open yourself to receive. And I invite you to know the truth with us as we pray. And so I know right now that there is only one presence and one power, and that is the very presence of life itself. That life is infinite in its knowingness, infinite in its ability, infinite in its capability. It is that from which all things have come. It is the maintainer and the sustainer of life itself. And it is that is living itself out within and through and as each and every single one of us. It is that presence and that power right now, today, that is unfolding itself in a greater way than ever before. And it is unfolding itself as the exact thing that we are longing to experience. The exact thing that our heart is calling us toward. The exact thing that is our dream and our longing. That is the presence of the divine speaking within our hearts, speaking within our souls. And this is the way that our souls are unfolding themselves today, as the magnificence that God is, as the beauty of life itself, as the grandeur and the opulence and the good, that we are each being led and guided right now to that perfect outcome. And that everything that is in our way, everything that has been blocking the way up until now is simply falling away. For God is bigger than that. And so I know in God there are no obstructions. There are no delays. There is only the fulfillment of itself, here and now. And so in gratitude, I give thanks for this. And I rest in this truth. And I rest in its unfolding. And in gratitude, I say, and so it is. And so we rest in this. And we are open and we say yes. And I say, thank you, God, and so it is.